Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode to the Latin Wealth Podcast. And today we have another guest on the podcast. We got a Latina on, and we're going to be having a great conversation about finances, all right? Financial literacy and whatnot. So a little bit about our guest today. She is a financial educator. She helps women manage their finances and their lifestyle. She is the creator of the High Five banking method, which we'll get into and what exactly that is and how it can help you out. And something else crazy about her, fun fact, her and her husband have paid off over $99,000 of debt, which is absolutely crazy. Welcome to the podcast, Sahirenys Pierce. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Chris, so much for having me. Super excited to be here and to share my story and talk about the High Five banking method and financial literacy, my second love language. So just thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for jumping on the podcast. Like I said, we're excited to have you on today because, financial literacy within the Latino community, it's almost like taboo to speak about in our household. I don't know about you, but growing up, we didn't ask people how much they made or what they're saving and whatnot. It was just like, don't ask those questions. So before we get too deep into all that, I'd love to know more about your background. How did you get in this industry? Like what sparked this second love language of yours, right?
Yeah, so my journey in finance actually started in 2008. My family are immigrants from Dominican Republic, and my dad was in the military. And the moment he went back to the DR as a veteran, my grandfather was like, "Mi hijo, invierta tu dinero, cómprate una tierrita." Like my dad I told him to invest in real estate. So once he got out of the military, he started, became a real estate agent here in San Diego. And, as a Latino man of color, it's not always easy to, build up your career in that area. So he was very hardworking. My mom was a stay-at-home mom at the moment. And they build themselves up from the bottom to, building up their version of the American dream, where we had an amazing house. We had BMWs. My quinceañera was lit. We were traveling to the Dominican Republic every single year. And it just felt like when times were good, times were good. But because my dad was in real estate and it's such a flexible industry, once 2008 happened, his industry was hit the hardest. And he wasn't selling any homes. And he literally sat my sister and I down and told us, "I can't afford the house payments. I can't afford the car payments. And please do not ask us about vacations or, prom or spending any money because we don't have it." And a few months after that, my sister and I, my mom, we were stressed out about money. Our relationship with money was changing. We lived in a situation of abundance, and now it was, regressing. And at that point, I started learning, that everything that you buy, just if you finance it, like that car that you bought, if you don't own it downright, it doesn't realistically really belong to you. If you don't make those payments, the tow truck gonna come get that car. That house that you financed, you might have a mortgage, but if your house is not paid off, that house don't belong to you. That bank's gonna own that house, and they're gonna call the sheriffs over there. And that's exactly what happened. We lost our home. The sheriffs came, and I realized at that moment I need to take control of my situation. I was kind of leaning into this financial fear and this financial anxiety, thinking that, it is what it is. I can't control anything. We're always going to be in this never-ending cycle of building ourselves up, building all this wealth, and then losing it every single time there's a recession, every single time the politics change, every time there's a speed bump going on. And I realized I have to turn my fear into power. And I realized, I have to figure out this money game, because this hustle mentality can only go so far. And, in my community, in my household, we always talk about, how to make money. But we never talk about how to save our money, how to protect our money, how to insure it, how to, maintain the money. And that's when I started learning about finance and financial planning. And the moment I learned about financial planning, my mind just blew my, I just like, it was a game changer for me, because I realized there are strategies out there so that we don't have to continue losing everything every time there's a recession. Every time my dad's not able to sell houses, we can actually learn about investing for retirement, emergency funds, paying off debt, wills, trusts, taxes. There's so much more into it, but we don't know anything else outside just make more money. Make more money. That's the solution for everything. And that's not always the solution. And it's unrealistic to assume that you're always going to be in a position to just continue making more money, keep that hustle mentality. And as my dad was getting older, he got tired. You get to a point in life where you cannot maintain it. You get burnt out. You're a person. You're not a robot. So you have to make sure you're protecting yourself, and that, you're using these different strategies in a way that benefits you and your reality. And that's something that I learned in the financial planning industry. And unfortunately, when I worked at Merrill Lynch, MetLife, and at Ameriprise, there were no people that looked like you and me coming in to get financial advice. We were coming in to like clean the building and, maybe work as an assistant or something like that. But being the actual financial advisors, being the actual clients that had 401ks, money inherited to us, we were not the target audience. And just going off the book was not going to be realistic for us. We had to find different, baby steps to help us get to those levels. And I realized, we are not feeling financially empowered or educated on the basics, on the principles. We can maneuver them, however we need to. Some people be like, oh, save 6-month emergency fund. That's really difficult for people our communities.
Yeah.
You need some, some strategies to get there. And that's what we're doing in Poised Finance and Lifestyle. We're like, I understand you need to save money. You want to live your best life, but you need to find a unique balance that works for you in the moment of imbalance. Life is unbalanced. Sometimes you're doing good, sometimes you're doing bad, but that's the balance in it. So you need to make sure that you're being realistic with your approach. And when it comes to my family and, how we handle finances, that's kind of what created Poised Finance and Lifestyle, learning how to manage your finance and lifestyle with poise. Because at the end of the day, it's not all about the money. It's also about making sure you're taking care of your well-being, that you're able to maintain what you're doing, and you're protecting yourself on the journey of building generational wealth at the same time.
You said a lot there. There's a lot to unpack there. Something I do want to unpack and dive into is, you said something critical to me. You said your guys' relationship with money changed, right? Before that, it was abundant. Now it's more scarcity, a scarcity mindset, right? Could you talk more about relationship with money? Because that's something that I think we preach a lot as well. Is like, you got to look at, what does that look like for you guys? Like, what is it, your relationship with money? Is it fearful? Is it like, what does that look like for you? So could you speak more about what you mean by that?
Yes, I definitely think that when it comes to finance and personal finance, we need to be targeting it more like in a financial wellness aspect, as a holistic aspect, because we always tell people, oh, it's all about financial literacy. If you know about how much you should be saving, if you know more, you do better, right? You should be budgeting, you should be saving, you should be investing. But the reality is, how are you feeling? How are you actually dealing with all of these different, things that you're dealing with? For me, at that time, I was dealing with us not having a secure place to live, always being fearful of tow trucks. Every time I heard one coming by, I was like, oh my gosh, they're coming to take the car. Wow. It was kind of scary. It was fearful. And I was allowing that to dictate other areas of my life. And I didn't even realize it until we lost the home. That I was getting into a career or a major I wasn't interested in. I got into pharmacy, which was a recession-proof industry, just because I was looking for stability, not because I liked it or was interested in. I wasn't even good at it. So, I wasn't even interested in it. So then you start realizing that you're making a lot of not just financial choices, but life choices based on fear. And based off anxiety and your relationship with money, and you're not opening yourself up to what options you have and possibilities you have. You're closing yourself in, you're distancing yourself from your community, and you're hiding stuff, even from your partner. When my husband and I first met, we were dating, I couldn't even fake it. I couldn't fake what was going on. My parents were in the midst of a divorce. We just lost our home. The cars were still like about to be repossessed. I had to open up with him. I couldn't, lie about what was actually going on in my real life, because it was affecting my relationship. It was affecting who I was becoming. And sometimes, we let this take us in a negative route or become fearful and, stay in that mindset. But you have to realize you have control, and you have to focus on the things you can control. And that's going to give you the financial power to actually utilize all these financial resources that we have available. If you know that you can save money in case an emergency happens, you're going to be more strategic. Okay, how much money can I save? What's realistic for me? I also want to make sure I can still do, go to the gym and relax my mindset, because if I'm stressed out just trying to make money and save money, but I'm not relieving myself mentally from the day-to-day stress, I'm just going to burn out even quicker. Yeah. So you need to find little ways to like de-stress yourself and really prioritize, where you're at, consider where your partner's at and where your family's at as well, because you might be, stressed out, but your mom could also be stressed out and y'all could be getting in arguments and not realizing, I gotta move because we're getting into it. It's like, no, they're going through something. Acknowledge it. Don't ignore it. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe the communities I'm in, they always say, just ignore, the situation, put your head down, keep going. Yes, but the reality is we have to, just keep up underneath the rug, just keep going, just focus on what you need to do. But a lot of times we have to heal through that trauma and work through it and find different strategies that protect us and our heart, our mind, our finances, our, ourselves from the trauma that we did experience in the past. And for me, the moment that I was able to get a car, I wanted to buy that car cash because I didn't want that fear of that tow truck coming, trying to repossess my car. I know if I hear a tow truck, they're helping me fix a flat tire, not the other way around. So you need to find little ways to protect yourself and to acknowledge what you're actually going through and not just ignore it. I feel like that's such a big part of it. And when we're talking to our family and friends, acknowledging that they're also going through stuff. And not just, thinking that they're just being mean to you or that they're just being, judgmental. They're going through stuff too, except that we're all human.
No, I love that. I love that. That's great advice. So the recession happens in '08. You get into financial planning. I'm assuming you meet your boyfriend at this time. Walk us through, how did you get into $90,000 of debt? Like, where did that come from? I mean, it seems like it seems like you got the right mindset. You're on the right track. You're in financial planning. Where did that come from? And how did you guys get over it?
I think the most interesting part about calculating your debt is that it adds up so quickly. You just add in your car, if you add in your student loans, you're already at 100,000. Like, there's no way.
There. Yeah.
Already there. So one of the main things that opened up the conversation about debt for me and my partner was what happened during '08. My family wasn't the only family that was affected during '08. His family was also affected. And when I talked to him about financial planning and I got into the industry, they made it very clear, you can't file bankruptcy, right? You can't just,
wipe it
be
out
over here helping people with their finances and you're over here struggling. Like, that's just not how that works. So I realized, I was like, man, what if we do hit hard times? Right. And I do file bankruptcy and we're struggling. I lose my job. On top of all of this stress, you're telling me I still have to pay my student loans on top of all of this? That just brought another perspective of how toxic debt can be, even if it's considered a positive debt, like good debt. Yeah. So, mathematically, taxes are like, oh, student loans is good debt. It is good debt. But on the other hand, it's still a responsibility that you have to handle regardless of what's happening. Because if you don't pay those student loans.
If I can interject really quick, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you break down how it's good debt? Because I don't think people see that as good debt, but can you break that down?
The good debt versus bad debt?
Yes. And especially with student loans, like you just said, student loan could be a good debt. Can you break that down?
My theory when it comes to good debt versus bad debt is that there's no such thing as good debt versus bad debt. There's good decisions and bad decisions. If you're someone who went to school and dropped out and you're not in your industry, you're going to look at your debt as bad debt. But if you actually went to school and you utilized your career and your path, then you're going to consider it good debt if you're making good money and you're actually utilizing it. So everyone's debt is different. It depends on how they're actually utilizing it. If you bought a car that's super expensive, but you don't even use it, then it's going to probably be considered negative debt. But if you utilize it every single day, it's something that you can afford, it's maintainable, it's not breaking down on you, then you're going to consider that good debt. You're like, yo, I have a really safe, dependable car. It doesn't give me issues. It's easy to maintain, doesn't cost a lot of money to, fill up. Then you're going to view that debt a little differently. So I think it's really important to be very cautious on the decisions that you're making when you're getting into debt. And I know how difficult it is, especially with student loans when you're so young. Yeah. It's one of the issues that I feel like I have with just going to college when you're so young is that you don't know what industry you want to be in. For me, like my husband, he is an artist. So he got into graphic design. He was already in it once he was like in middle school. So he knew what industry he wanted to be in. He was very clear on his major. But for me, on the other hand, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it took some time to figure that out. But once I did figure it out, I found a lot of benefit within it. But, if I would have never been one of those people that figured it out, I probably would be really frustrated with the debt that I did have. So when my husband and I joined our finances, once hearing about the financial planning industry, we started calculating our debts. And even though we looked at our student loans, that's the majority of our debt on top of our cars, his cars and my car at that time, it added up to such a monumental number. But we were very valuable. We knew these were very valuable things in our lives. His degree allowed him to open the door into his new industry. My degree opened the door to my industry. We had reliable vehicles. So we felt comfortable with the decisions that we made, but we knew that they were still going to hold us back financially. Right. And it was a big responsibility, especially when we start adding in how much the student loan payments are, the car payments, the car insurance, all the little fine details. This debt really does add up. So you have to figure out how you're going to pay it off. And one of the interesting things about our debt-free journey is that, we talked about debt, we talked about our finances early on. And when we decided that we wanted to get married, we said, you know what, we are going to set a goal to finish paying off our student loans before we get married. Wow. And it was difficult. I actually do not recommend to set two difficult goals at the same time, because we were also saving for the wedding, trying to cash flow it so we don't end up going into credit card debt, and also paying off our student loans. So there's two big goals that we're trying to accomplish. But, we side hustled. My husband got a second side hustle after work. I was getting my certifications and getting bonuses and getting increase in my pay. And those were the things that kind of allowed us to kind of snowball both of those goals at the exact same time. It weren't easy to accomplish. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Yeah. We were not the popular couple, in San Diego. Everyone's always going out to eat, going to the beach, having fun. But we really had to buckle down and be like, no, we got to do this. This is for us so that we can start our marriage on the right foot without having negative conversations about our debt holding us back when we want to buy a house, when we want to start a business, having kids. There's so much into it, and you really want to make sure that your debt is not holding you back from the future that you want to have, that your past isn't holding you back. So that's a decision that we both made. And because we both were in agreement, we killed it together.
Not super dope. So once you guys finally paid off your debt, talk to us about the feeling, like that last payment or whatever that was. Talk to us about that release that you guys went through.
Oh my gosh, our honeymoon is kind of like our memory of that. Yep. So when we got married, we literally finished paying off all of our student loans, and we cash flowed the entire wedding. We flew out our family members, paid for their hotels, their suits. We felt like superheroes. Yeah. So when we went to our honeymoon, everyone was thinking that we're celebrating our new marriage, but I'm like, we were actually celebrating two things: our new, our new marriage, and also our debt-free journey that we just finished paying off. So it was like a big reward at the end. Yeah. And it just felt like relieving once we came back home. I felt like, anything is possible. We can literally do anything together, because look how much we accomplished in such a short amount of time. We knocked out these student loans. We paid off, this wedding cash. We cash flowed it. Now we can do whatever we want. We can literally start businesses. We can start our family without that stress of that debt holding us back. So it's definitely feels like you just shed it like dead skin and you're
A
ready
lot
to
of
be a
weight.
new version of yourself. Yeah, and it feels great. It's
Yeah,
very
that's amazing.
empowering and it's almost dangerous because you feel like you can, take on the world at a certain point.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. So now you're at a point where you went through this process and you're probably feeling like, okay, I want to educate other people. I want to help other people with their finances and whatnot. Talk to us about the high five banking method. When did this come across, and break down what exactly it is?
Yes. So because I was in the finance industry, I
Mhm.
knew how to save up for goals. I knew how to set
Mhm.
goals and how to save up for them. One thing that we did for our wedding was that we opened up a joint savings account and we both were contributing towards saving for that specific goal. Now, it kind of seemed like second nature to us because, or to me,
Mhm.
budgeting, paying off debt, setting goals, saving an emergency fund. It felt like second nature to me. It was like I wasn't even thinking about it. And I didn't think about it for a really long time until I was into my second pregnancy,
Mm.
where I found out that my son was diagnosed with a heart defect
Mm.
and he would need open heart surgery either right after birth or a few
Wow.
months, like 6 or 12 months down the road.
Wow.
And once we found that out, my entire perspective of money, life, to be honest, changed
Mhm.
dramatically. I realized that money was not the most important thing. Our family was making sure that, I know that we want to hit all of these different financial goals, but we do not need to kill ourselves or pressure ourselves when we're already dealing with a lot. And
Mm.
I told my husband the same day that we kind of found out everything was happening and we kind of calmed down from, the emotional standpoint, we need to tackle this surgery and this real situation the same way we attacked saving for our wedding. So
Mm.
that same savings account that we had that for our wedding savings, it was empty at that point. We're like, you know what? This is the account that we're going to utilize to save for our son's open heart surgery. We need
Mhm.
to make sure we figure out how much it costs, figure out how many days you're going to be off work. My husband's he's a business owner. So, if
Yeah.
you don't work, you don't get paid.
You don't get paid.
So
Yeah.
you have to prepare to make sure the bills are taken care of and everything that we need is taken care of. So once we gave birth, everything was great. He was one of the healthiest babies in the
Oh,
NICU. We
what
were
a
able to take
blessing.
our son home. And
Blessing.
6 months later, it was time for the surgery. He was a bit
Mm.
bigger, the heart was bigger. We were ready for that. And something that that we were experiencing when we were there was a lot of other families that were also, in the waiting room, waiting to
Mm.
hear the results of their children. And there was a mom there, a couple there that, she had to quit her job because they wouldn't give her time off to be there with her son,
Wow.
her daughter.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And the recovery was about like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the dad, he left during the surgery to go do Uber to go, make ends
Mm.
meet because they couldn't afford the surgery. He was sleeping out of his car. And you start realizing there's a lot of people out here who are
Yeah, that's
dealing with some
crazy.
heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they also have to deal with the financial responsibilities of real life, paying their bills, paying their GAR, paying for this surgery and things of this nature. And it just really humbled me, made me feel super grateful to have, that money saved in my savings account and knowing that when it came time for them to be like,
Mhm.
oh, let's charge the surgery, take the
Mhm.
card. I got
Right.
the money. Focus on my baby. Don't worry
Yeah.
about the money. We got that. And once we got home and everything was a successful surgery and everything like that, I realized that the way we managed our money was so vital. It was life-changing, to be honest, to be able to
Mm.
focus on my son 100% and not worry about the bills being paid because I knew they were paid. Not being, penny pinching when it's time for
Mm.
me to buy some food at, the
Yeah.
hospital, knowing that I had the money to buy the food. Not worrying about, um if we had the money for my son's surgery, we had the money. And I told my husband when we got home, I'm like, we need to share this. We need to open
Yeah.
up and
That's
talk to people
powerful.
about how we organized our finances because it was so powerful to know that we had the money in the right places. I didn't have to go look at Excel sheet. I didn't have to look at my bank account. I knew what I had and I felt crystal clear on
Mm.
how to maneuver financially during these
Wow.
difficult times where you don't even want to think about money at all.
Mm-mm.
And my husband was like, okay, well then how are we managing our finances? You tell me. I was like, okay, well, we have, one checking account for our bills. We have another checking account for our lifestyle. We have our emergency fund right here. We have the money for our long-term goals right here and our short-term goals right over there. And he was like, well, how many accounts is that? I was like, 5. And we were like, oh my gosh, high five. High five banking method. We're like, this is so dope. It was like that magical moment. We're like, we got there. We got the name. We know how to explain it. And it was just a simple way to organize your finances with purpose. And it starts by having 5 bank accounts. Okay. The first checking account is going to be for your lifestyle, for your bills checking account. I'm sorry. And the next, let me start that again. So the high five banking method is composed of 5 bank accounts, 2 checking accounts, and 3 savings accounts, with the first checking account being for your bills. This is going to be where you put all of your mandatory bills, your housing, utilities, car payment, gas, cell phone, healthcare, groceries. The next checking account is going to be for your lifestyle expenses. This is going to be for all your wants, your monthly wants that you want to do, like going out to eat, Starbucks, Target runs for the ladies out there. And then the next step is going to be the savings accounts. The first one is your emergency fund, which I consider to be the most important savings account, where I recommend everyone to have at least 3 to 6 months of your bills checking account amount to have in your emergency fund, preferably in a high yield savings account. The next one's going to be for your long-term goals. These are goals that are going to take more than a year, but less than 5 years to accomplish. Like if you want to buy a house, if you want to pay for a wedding, anything that is coming up, but it's a big ticket item. And the last savings account is going to be for your short-term goals. This is kind of like a sinking fund for things that you want to spend in the next 12 months. Like if you want to spend a little vacation, go, for Christmas, have fun for that. Things for annual memberships. You have the money for it. You're being proactive and you're planning everything out so that you're not surprised and accidentally getting into credit card debt. So that's pretty much what the high five banking method is. It has been such a solid foundation for our finances, and it's allowed us to feel a lot more comfortable and confident when we're sticking to our budget, when we're setting goals, and also making sure we have a solid foundation so we can build upon that. So when we're starting our businesses, investing in our future, we know we have the mandatory things that we need taken care of.
Absolutely. No, that's super dope. So you guys come up with this banking method. Now, what are some of the ways that you start teaching it to people? You're like, okay, now we have to take to the people out there. I know you have different resources, like you got the YouTube account, you got your Instagram account, which is very informative. What are some different ways that you guys take it out to the people?
I think the most important thing when it comes to teaching financial literacy is make it memorable. So even when it comes to the high five banking method, I've made it so simple that I can teach my children about it. Every time they think about how many bank accounts should I have? Look at your hand. 5. What's the most important bill? What's the most important account that you need? Your bills. Once you paid your bills, give yourself a thumbs up. Don't wait for someone else to congratulate you for paying your bills. You know you are on the right track and you are making a priority the most expensive thing that you have to take care of, which is your necessities. You can't think about your future if your current situation ain't good. The second one is going to be your lifestyle expenses. The more pointing you do, the less of ability you're going to have to save. So if you spend a little less, stop pointing so much, you're going to be able to save a little bit more and you're going to be okay. When it comes to the emergency fund, anytime a difficult situation comes to your way, just throw your middle finger up and say, I got you. Come hit me. I'm ready. I am ready for the emergency. I am prepared. I have the money. Ya tu sabes. When it comes to your long-term goals, you guys stay committed to it. It's like your engagement ring to it. You want to buy that house, stay committed to it. It doesn't matter what the stock market is doing. Doesn't matter what politics are doing. You are committed to saving for that goal. Even if you have to change the date a little bit, change the amount a little bit, you are flexible and you are ready to accomplish that goal. Now, when it comes to the short-term goals, is the pinky ring. You got to pinky promise yourself you're not going to go into debt anymore. And the way to do that is to save for those things ahead of time. And I know it's difficult. Sometimes you're like, oh man, there's so many little things I want to do. find the unique balance for you, for yourself. Sometimes you might have to say, you know what, I can't save $1,000 for Christmas. I'm gonna have to reduce that to 500 because I want to, put that money towards paying off debt, or put that money towards buying a house, put that money towards a different goal that I have. You have to be flexible within your goals and even with your budget. That's why the most powerful thing about the high five banking method is that you have to budget. Every single month, it's a new budget. You have to calculate exactly how much money do you need to put in your bills? How much money do you need to put for your lifestyle? Is it, if during good times, you might put more, during bad times, you might put a little bit less. Be flexible with it. When it comes to your emergency fund, you know exactly how much you need to put in your emergency fund. It equals your bills. Whatever you're putting into your bills account, that's 1 month of how much you need to have in your emergency fund. And you build upon that. I know it's difficult for minorities, to save a large amount of money, but break that goal down every single year. Make it a goal to save at least 1 month of your bills. And I know if you live in a big city, you're like, hey, that's a more realistic goal for me, for myself, instead of saving, for $10,000 in 1 year. That might be too much. Bring it down, something more realistic for yourself, and stay committed to those long-term goals and those short-term goals. And, those are the small ways that we're teaching even our kids about generational wealth and how to manage their finances. And if you can teach a kid, you can teach anybody.
Yeah, I was going to say the way I love the way you just broke it down, because like you said, if you can teach it to a kid, you can teach it to anybody. And financial literacy is not sexy. It's not always fun. It's not, like I said in the beginning, it's taboo to talk about. But the way you broke it down, it's interactive, it's fun, and it's most important thing, it's easy to understand. It makes it doable, right? They say, what's the saying? They say the easiest way to eat a cow is one bite at a time, right? Like taking one little bite at a time, and then you'll be able to accomplish your goals and get to where you want to be. And man, I just love the way you broke that down. It makes it so much easy and simple for people out there, and even for myself, for sure.
Yes, definitely. And that's the fun part. You can teach your kids about it. And once they turn 18, they cannot say that mom and dad didn't teach us about, how to organize our finances, how to budget, how to save an emergency fund, how to set goals. You're teaching so many little things at the exact same time without even realizing it. And that's the powerful thing about the high five banking method and being purposeful with how you are saving, how you are spending, and how you're investing.
Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, right now they say we're in a recession or not. People are like, we're not. A lot of the people in the financial spaces are like, yeah, we're definitely in a recession. We've been in a recession. With that being said, I'd love to give some advice to people out there. And, a lot of people have many different opinions about saving money. People think that they should just be saving all of their money just to save. Or there's some people out there that say I should be investing everything. And I think in the times like today, to me, it reminds us why cash is king, right? The reason why you need to have some type of cash on hand, the reason why you need to be liquid at some type of point, right? What is your thoughts about that? The recession, the last time you were in one, it hit you guys pretty hard. So I know you're probably doing everything in your power to prepare, or you guys have been preparing probably. Talk to us about that.
I think the most interesting part about now hearing, that we might be in a recession and all that,
right.
The most interesting part about it, when I think about it, like from a well-being part, is that the first time it came around, I wasn't ready. I was young, I wasn't prepared, my family wasn't prepared. But what I got to say to this recession now is come at me right now. Come hit me right now, because I've been practicing at the gym. I'm ready to knock you out. Box. I'm ready to box. You're not going to come for my family. You're not going to come for the wealth, all the hard work I built up. You're not going to even come close to me, because I'm preparing myself during the good times. And I know for a lot of times, in the Latino community, everybody's always like, oh, let's go have fun. Let's, enjoy ourselves. I'm somebody who do it with moderation. I'm going to have my vacations, save for my emergency fund, and also make sure that I'm building a strong foundation so that when I'm building, I don't have to keep on starting from zero again, because that's too much work. It's too much energy
working
to have to continue. Yeah, every single time there's a recession. And again, it's a natural part of our economy. If you're in finance, you know that. If you study econ, you know it's coming. So not preparing for it is not an option for me. So one thing that my husband and I have done to better prepare ourselves mentally and financially is to create an SOP for our finances, which is pretty much a standard operating procedure. Yeah. Him and me, we want to make sure that we are on the same page and know that we have a game plan A, B, and C ready to go just in case life does, twist up on us, because it's going to happen. It might be a recession. It might be a family emergency, death in the family, a job loss. The options are limitless, to be honest with you. That's part of life. That just happens all the time. So regardless if we're in a recession or not, we need to be prepared as a household. Make sure our finances are clear of what needs to be cut, kept, or reduced during difficult times. And it needs to be no he say, she say, no arguments. It's him and me against the problem, not him and me against each other. Wow. And I feel like when my family was going through that, my mom, she just gave the responsibility to my dad. That's like the Latino way, the man takes care of the money, all of that. The woman takes care of the household. So because I'm a woman in finance, I said, no, you know what? I want to be in the decision making as well. It's not his responsibility to do everything. We're a team. We got to make sure we're protecting each other and that we're both thinking through this strategically of what financial options we have. If we need to increase our income, what's our options? If we need to save money, how much do we need to save? And be very clear on what our situation is, our risk tolerance, because his risk tolerance could be different than mine. My risk tolerance is I'm not trying to be homeless again. So we need to make sure we're secure in our situation, regardless of what happens. I don't care about what investment opportunities are available. If I'm struggling and we don't have a car, we don't have a house, we can't, buy groceries for our kids. We need to make sure that we are still both aligned on what's most important. That's making sure that we can get through this storm. So that's one of the main things I recommend everyone to do is to get an SOP for your finances, not just for your financial well-being, but also for your mental and well-being in general. You want to make sure that you are not, blind to what's going on, making sure that you're communicating with your partner. A lot of people are losing their jobs right now. Companies are a little rocky. They're seeing the red flags. Do not be blind to that. Talk about that with your partner. If you have you're in a serious relationship, talk to your family members. My mom, she's not in the workforce. So for her, she doesn't know what's going on. She's not watching the news or the stock market. That's never been part of her routine. So as, a daughter, I'm making sure she's aware of what's going on. Inflation's at 9.1%. These flights are going crazy. All she sees is the flights into Domingo. It's like, these flights into Domingo are getting expensive. And I'm like, Mom, that's all she worried about. But I'm like, there's situations going on with, the pilots, the striking and all that. It's your responsibility, to open up these conversations that are real with your family members and making sure that as a unit, everybody knows what's going on. No one's caught off guard. That way everyone could start making their own SOPs and figuring out what they need to make or what they need to make modifications to in their budget. Being clear on, what options you have when it comes to unemployment. Like during the pandemic, people, they were getting these extra $600, but they don't even know how much their actual unemployment benefits would have been if they didn't get that $600. And that's something you need to know. You got to be realistic right now. And I feel like that's really difficult because we're so used to the stock market booming. We're used to, being able to just job hop from here to there. What happens when that slows down? What's the next game plan? And for a lot of people, they're just like, oh, that was my game plan. Just make more money. Yeah. And they keep relying on that, foundation, just make more money. And that's not something that's sustainable when times are slowing down, when the economy's slowing down, when, the stock market's slowing down. You're like, okay, now I can't day trade as quickly as I probably could have been doing during the pandemic. What happens when that's not an option no more? What are you willing to sacrifice or willing to maneuver when it comes to your budget? Are you, you're going to cancel Netflix or you're going to just hang in there and get into credit card debt? It's one or the other at this point because credit card debt is jumping up rapidly right now. And interest rates are catching up right there with it. And we don't realize that every time we hear the feds are raising the interest, the Fed rate, everyone's like, oh, okay, I'm not buying a house right now. It's not a big deal. It's like, this affects your credit card, your student loans, all the other things. And then when they realize, they're like, oh, snap, that's not that's not good. I was like, that's why we have to be,
Having these
involved in what's
conversations.
going
Yeah.
on.
And having, educating
Having the
ourselves too.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, and being involved. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to be doing, especially in the Black and Brown community. We need to be setting up SOPs, having these conversations, and being realistic with what you can actually do. Because a lot of times we say, I'm gonna get 3 jobs, and you burnt out after doing your second shift.
Man.
Gotta be realistic here.
Yeah. So what's entailed in your SOP? Because when I think of an SOP, I think of business. I think of like, I'm assuming that you guys created this and you can pass it along to the family just in case, God forbid, something happens. Maybe your kids can know like, okay, this is how I can manage my finances and whatnot. What goes into what you guys created?
So it's pretty much like doing an annual financial review, a mini annual financial review, but taking action on it. So what would happen in the worst case scenario? Let's say you do lose your job. You got to be very clear on what income streams you got coming in. You got dividend income, unemployment income, side hustles. What options do you have there? Next up, you want to be very aware of how much savings you have and how much investments you have. In the worst case scenario, if you need to pull money from your brokerage account, you got to pull money from your brokerage account. You can't be, not having a place to live, no cell phone, no car. That's not a reality. We have to be very clear that money is a tool and is there to help you help you achieve different financial goals or help you figure out different financial solutions that you may need. And during difficult times, you have to be realistic with yourself. You know what? I may have to reduce how much money I'm contributing to my 401k. I'm not making ends meet. I'm getting heavy into credit card debt right now. You need to be very realistic and open with what your actual financial picture is looking like. And if you're someone who doesn't budget, it's time to budget. It's not a choice. You have to be very crystal clear on how much money you can spend when money is tight. And that's very important because I know a lot of people, they're not used to it. They're like, I don't know. I don't want to do it. It's not a choice. You got to do it. You got to make sure that you are very clear on how much your bills are and how much your lifestyle expenses are, and not allow your lifestyle expenses to put you into credit card debt or not have you being able to, fulfill that responsibility when it comes to your bills. The other portion of the SOP, once you do handle the financial responsibility part, is being very clear on how much money you need for your emergency fund. Because during difficult times, that's your, your plan B right there. You got to rely on your emergency fund. If you're not getting any income coming in, you already utilize, all your unemployment, your savings is your second line of defense. So you need to make sure that you have enough money in there based on your risk tolerance, your job security, and if you have dependents. Because if you got kids, you have less flexibility. You're gonna need more money. That's just the reality. You can't, stay at your mom's house if she doesn't have, an extra room. She only has a couch. That might work when you're single, but then when you have little kids, you got to bring them some type of level of stability and make sure that, you're accomplishing everything that they need so that they can, thrive and go to school and be focused on what they need to be focused on, not, oh, snap, we're sleeping on the floor at grandma's house. That can bring up a lot of trauma. So you really want to make sure you are utilizing that emergency fund as much as possible. And then the last step of the SOP is to create a cut, keep, and reduce mindset of creating a game plan A, B, and C of what you're willing to do if you need to keep this expense. What are you willing to do if you need to reduce this expense? What are you willing to do if you need to cut this expense? And give yourself a game plan of how to actually attack those different scenarios. And a lot of times it's doing research, seeing what services and programs are available in your community for utilities, figuring out what services are available when it comes to your credit card. Can they lower the amount? Can they move the date? Can they pause the interest for a few months? What options do you have to help you get through this storm? And from there, creating a game plan for you and your partner, or just you if you're single, doesn't matter. You don't have to be in a relationship to do an SOP, seeing what options do I really have and what can I actually do during these difficult times where, I might be stressed out, going to depression, not able to make enough money to make ends meet. What financial options do I have? And because again, we live in America where if you're hungry, we got food stamps, we got programs here, utilize them. We got to let go of that ego that we have saying, I'm too good to apply for unemployment. I'm too good to, apply for food stamps. Utilize the options that you have when you need them. And if you don't need them no more, let them go. It's okay. That doesn't define who you are. That does not mean you're less successful. Does not mean you have to bully yourself and beat yourself up because you didn't, achieve a goal or couldn't invest or whatever. Focus on the foundation, taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, and taking care of your mindset during this difficult time. Because again, recessions, pandemics, all of these things, they don't just affect our pockets, they affect our real lives. Yeah. And that's the part that I need everyone to really understand. This is bigger than just finances. This is your real life. This is your mindset. This is how you're going to approach, entering your next career, your relationships, your connections with your community. You have to be very clear that you have a strong community and you're keeping your mindset strong when you're dealing with these difficulties, because, hey, we're all seeing inflation jumping up. We're seeing the news. We're not blind to it. So just make sure that you're, making some adjustments as necessary, but you're also thinking about them from a place of calmness and not in a situation where it's kind of like fight or flight. Because a lot of times we'll make decisions that are irrational because we're like in the heat of the moment. And sometimes those decisions have big consequences, like, getting into heavy credit card debt and not realizing, you know what? I could have canceled that vacation for the summer and saved that for my emergency fund and rearranged how I manage my finances. So this way I wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Just been like, it is what it is. Start making the adjustments now. Don't wait until, it starts to rain to start saving.
Look, I could probably talk to you for like 2-3 more hours because there's a bunch of questions and some things that we can dive into, but I don't want to hold you up all day. Something before we go, we can start wrapping this thing up. I want to say is I love the fact that what you preach taking care of your wellness and your family and like your unit, your tribe. Take care of your people around you before you start doing other things, right? Like I think social media can pressure a lot of us to invest in these meme coins and whatnot and taking the money that's supposed to be emergency money and dumping it into something, hoping, but you really need to be focused on yourself and taking care of your well-being before you start, putting your money in other places. So I love the fact that you preach that, because like I said, a lot of people will bring them on. We might ask for suggestions for the recession or something like that, and they're just like, yeah, just invest all your money, just put all your money into this, and it's like, no, that's not realistic for everybody, right? That's not ideal for everybody. People, part of building wealth is obviously taking care of you and your family, and then taking those steps to getting to the point where you can put your money into different stocks and crypto and whatnot in the real estate market. So I love that you preach that. Very much needed.
Yes, definitely. And again, in the Latino community, I get it. Sometimes we're used to doing, a lot with the little, and we're seeing opportunities all over the place to get out of the situations that we're in. But it's very difficult to focus on your future when your current situation is not good. It's tumbling down, crumbling right in front of you. So that's one of the main reasons why I always preach, take care of yourself first, get out of survival mode, and jump up the steps, the next step, where you can position yourself to start investing in yourself, position yourself to start a business, position yourself to get into real estate, position yourself to, start a brokerage account or retirement. But if you are just jumping up from survival mode to investing, in real estate, you're probably going to lose it all. And you put all that energy, all that effort into something that is just keeps you in that cycle, never ending cycle, building yourself up, losing it all after every recession, every war, every economic downturn, every single time, and having to start again from the bottom. Position yourself, focus on the foundation, and trust me, once you start building up that house, it is going to stay up. That's the main thing. It's not just getting the house. The goal isn't just getting the house. It's maintaining the house, keeping the house, paying it off. It's the goal isn't just to get married. It's to build a good relationship. It's to maintain that marriage, stay married, and go through the ups and downs together. That is the actual goal. I think a lot of times we kind of get lost in that. We think that the goal is just accumulating. And if we lose it, it's not a big deal. losing it is
Yeah.
that's like doing the opposite of what the goal is. We think of the goal, it's like, no, I'm trying to stay married. I'm trying to
Yeah.
pay off the house. I'm not trying to lose
Facts.
it. So that's the different mindset that we have to kind of like rearrange for ourselves. And I think the older we get, the more we learn, we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. Powerful, powerful stuff. We might need you on for a part two, to be honest.
Oh man, I'm ready. I'm ready. You let me know.
Right, right. With that being said, I want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for your energy and your presence and your wisdom. Where can people reach out to you if they have any questions or if they want to get more information from you? Let the people know, and we'll drop all the links in the description of this podcast so people can go ahead and check you out as well.
Yeah, definitely find me on thepoisedlifestyle.com. I have more information there about the high five banking method, the SOP, how much money you need to save for your emergency fund. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I hold Q&As so you guys can send me questions. You can DM them to me. Right now in my stories, I kind of put it out there on the weekends, send me your finance questions and I'll do a video to kind of answer our community questions. I know in our community, we get kind of embarrassed, a little shy to ask personal finance questions with someone who is, in the industry. So I keep everything anonymous. I answer guys' questions and videos so that, not just you're getting the information, but your friends and family and our community can grow and become more knowledgeable of how to strategically, use these emergency funds, use budgeting, use paying off debt, how to benefit our lives in general so that we're all growing together. We're not just, keeping the information, under lock and key.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. With that being said, thank you once again. Share this episode with one of your friends and family that needs to hear this. And trust me, everybody needs to hear this information. So share it with somebody. Don't forget to follow us on Latin Wealth on Instagram. And with that being said, it's your boy Chris. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.